Oral piercings, most risky to least risky. Coming up next on Body Piercing Basics, episode number 101. So if you want to know that, you probably want to stick around. For those that are new to the channel, my name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I own and I operate the Axiom Body Piercing Studio and have magic hands. Located here in Des Moines, Iowa, inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So when I talk about these things, I'm talking about a level of expertise that comes from being in the body piercing industry for well over 26 years. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the oral piercings. We're going to go from the least risky to the most risky. And when I talk about risk, I'm talking about things like rejection, migration, damage to teeth, affecting speech, damage to your gums, and damage to the bone structure of your mouth. What are going to be the piercings that are probably going to cause the least amount of damage? Today, I'm going to focus on just the individual piercings. If everybody wants, I'll do one on bites maybe next week. This topic came from one of our viewers. They made a comment asking this question and asking if I could do a video. And I went, hey, that's something I should put on the list. And then I forgot to put their name on the list. So I'm very sorry. Thank you for the topic, and you deserve all the credit possible. Please pat yourself on the back at least 4 times. So let's get into the heart of it. We're going to go through roughly about, let me look at this, 16 different piercings you can do in the mouth. Some of these I do. Some of these I don't advise doing and I won't do. I flat out refuse to do them. Starting with number 1, snake eyes. For those that don't know, snake eyes is a piercing through the tip of the tongue horizontally. It is a bad idea on so many different levels, from the fact that you have 2 muscles groupings in your tongue that move separately. If you try to attach them, you're going to have issues with speech, eating, everything else. The other problem is those 2 little balls directly in contact with your front teeth and canines. It will cause damage. I know I'm probably going to get 15, 20 comments of, I had mine for 4 years and it's perfect. You're the exception. A majority of the people that get this done usually take this piercing out after a few days. Sometimes weeks. The other issue with them is they don't really heal very well. They tend to reject. They tend to migrate. So you have all this possibility of damage with the fact that it's probably not going to be successful. So it's number 1 on the list of risky or possibly stupid piercings to do in your mouth. And that moves us on to number 2. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is not that risky and blah, blah, blah. Ashley piercings. Ashley piercings is a piercing that's done for your lip right pretty much at the edge of your lip, directly in contact with your teeth, or where your teeth actually come together. Some people will claim up and down that this doesn't cause any issues or any problems after they heal, but the fact is you're still going to have jewelry in your mouth for a fairly lengthy period of time to allow for the swelling that's going to be banging constantly against your teeth. Also, there's the possibility of rejection or migration with this piercing, or shifting or moving side to side. That's why it's number 2 on the list. That moves on to number 3 in the long list of things that I don't do and I wouldn't suggest doing. Dahlia piercings. Basically 2 cheek-style piercings right at the edge of your mouth. Here's the deal with these. Unless you have the perfect anatomy for this piercing, it's going to reject. It's going to migrate. It's going to push through, and you're going to end up with basically a Chelsea smile. For those that are not familiar with football hooliganism, the Joker thing, the 2 giant scars on the side of your mouth. That's very attractive. You should get one of these for that. Number 4, scoop piercings. Yet another horizontal piercing of the tongue that I won't do. This one's done surface to surface across the top of the tongue, usually done with a curved barbell, though sometimes done with a surface to surface bar. Not a good idea. It's going to not only have issues with rejection and migration and affecting how you talk and how you eat and everything else, but it's going to be constantly banging against the top of your mouth in your bone structure. It is in usually a forward position, meaning that it's more contact, less room for it. So this is another piercing that I do not suggest, and it is number 4 in this fun list. Number 5, another one I try to avoid, side tongue piercings. These are piercings that are done on the outside edge of the tongue, either on the tip or off to the side. Basically, you're asking that your molars and your gums in the bone structure on the top of your mouth and bottom of your mouth come in contact with that barbell over and over and over again and cause lots of damage. Everybody thinks, oh, they're as safe as midline tongue piercings, but they aren't. The further out you go, your mouth is shaped kind of like a dome, kind of squarish dome. The further you go out, the less room there is. So, and the closer you are to teeth, the more contact you're going to have. So that makes this one number 5. Now we're moving on to a piercing that I have done in the past, but really consider probably not. If I never have to do one again, I will be a happy piercer, and that's cheek piercings. The problem with cheek piercings is it comes in a lot of different folds. First off, most people don't really have the correct anatomy for it. It really needs to have that sweet spot between the two muscles. There is no way to guarantee that when you're doing this piercing that you're not going to go through saliva ducts and that it's not going to leak out saliva, even after the piercing has been abandoned. It will also leave a lot of scar tissue. The next thing is extremely long posts need to be put in this jewelry because of the amount of swelling, or in this piercing for the amount of swelling. So it's going to have a lot of contact with your teeth. No way around it. You're going to have contact with teeth and possibly gums too, especially during the swelling process. After the swelling's over, it may not be as much of an issue, but there's still that possibility. Usually, once you get to that smaller one, it'll kind of nest in and reduce a lot of that risk, but it's still there. Then, to say it again, there's the whole saliva thing. You know, the drool that comes out the side of your mouth. And those giant indentation scars. I know a lot of people want to get this done because they want to have dimples. It doesn't look like dimples. It looks like something else, and I wouldn't advise doing this for that reason. Now, we move on to number 7, the Jespit, or Jestrum. Not the Jespit, the Jestrum. Jestrum is like a vertical Labret, but it's done on the top lip. The reason why this is so high on the list is that most people do not have the anatomy for this piercing. The lip needs to curve outward and be more full so that the piercing can be done as vertically as possible to keep it away from your front teeth. If your mouth isn't like that, or like mine where it's kind of just flat, you're going to have a problem with the inside ball constantly banging and knocking against your teeth. Number 8, we're going to move on to Smileys and Frownies. I'm just going to lump them together because they kind of come from the same family. For those that don't know what this is, a smiley is through the floronium tendon right there at the top of your lip, and the frowny is through the bottom tendon on the bottom of your lip. The reason why I put this fairly high on the risk list is that it does have contact a lot with gums and teeth. The other problem with them is they collect plaque, which possibly agitates the piercing, which leads to swelling. I don't know how many people I have encountered over the years that have this piercing, or either of these piercings, for roughly about 2 to 3 years, don't have a lot of problems with it, and either start developing tenderness in their front teeth or on the gum line, or it suddenly swells up to engulf the jewelry, and it's next to impossible to get it out. It's just one of those piercings you don't know a lot of people or come across a lot of people that have had it for a long period of time. One hint I did find or have from one of our viewers is removing the plaque on a regular basis is probably the answer to avoiding the swelling issue. That moves on to medusas. Medusas are a Labret-style piercing done on your top lip right in the center. The reason why this is number 9 on the list is the amount of contact it can have with gums and teeth, especially during the healing process. It also has an issue because if that angle isn't just right, that back disc will dig into your gums, and it don't feel good to say the least. So that's number 9. Now let's move on to number 10. I constantly seem to have to explain this. I always define lip piercings and Labret piercings differently because that's how I was taught. Labret piercings are done straight through the tissue to batch it at a 90-degree angle. They are done with a Labret stud. Lip piercings are usually done at a more upward angle and more outside the mouth. So when I say a Labret piercing, I'm talking about anything that's done on the lower lip with a Labret stud. These are a higher risk basically because of the possibility of that disc having contact with teeth and gums. The deterioration over time can be very painful and irreversible. Once your gums go, they don't come back. Same thing with the teeth. You don't grow more of them. So having that contact with teeth can be an issue. That's why placement and wearing proper jewelry in these piercings is your best option to avoid problems. I don't care what material it's made out of. It comes down to proper size and proper placement. Now let's move on to number 11. Beauty marks, also referred to as Madonnas and Monroes. Why they have a different name for what side of their face they're on makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. They're beauty marks. It's kind of like if we had a nostril piercing that if you did it on the left side, it's called a Frank, and if you did it on the right, it was called a Joey, or maybe eyebrows that if it's done on one side, it's a Geraldine, and on the other side, it's a Gerald. It's silly, in my opinion. Anyway, the biggest problem with beauty marks is that disc in the back is in contact with your gums. If the jewelry isn't the correct size or the angle's off, it can do a lot of damage to your gums. It's a lesser damage or a lesser risk than even Labret studs on the bottom lip, mainly because you don't move your upper lip as much as you move your lower lip. And that constant movement is one of the issues with erosion. So you have less contact, less rubbing, etc., less risk. That takes us to number 12, venom piercings. Venom piercings, for those who don't know, are tongue piercings done off the midline to matching on each side of the tongue, but inside the veins. It's more centered. First off and foremost, you just have to have the perfect anatomy for this particular piercing. It is not one that everybody can get. It is a rare piercing from that standpoint. Now, it goes back to the same thing. You're going to have more risk the further you are out from the center. The more contact you're going to have with bones, the more contact you're going to have with teeth, and the more contact you're going to have with gums. So it's a little bit more risky than a midline piercing or tongue piercing, but it is. It's more risky. Plus, you have twice the jewelry, twice the contact, twice the possibility of problems. Number 13, the midline tongue piercing. The reason why this is even this high on this list is because, well, it's easy to catch the thing on your teeth. It's easy to bite down on it. It is in the middle of your tongue. You're constantly having contact with stuff. If it's done incorrectly, placed incorrectly, the angle's wrong, the jewelry's the wrong size, it's going to cause a lot of damage to the gums on the underside of your mouth, the bone structure on the top of your mouth, and get in there and chip some molars. Fun stuff. Number 14. And that's going to be the tongue webbing. I don't do them. I don't like them. I just don't want to do them. I think they're kind of silly, but that's me. I'm sure you can find a capable piercer that's willing to do them. But because this really doesn't have a lot of contact with anything, it tends to do the least amount of damage of any tongue piercing for the most part. The only problem with it is the same kind of issues the Smiley has as far as the swelling. They do need to be cleaned. They're just like a collection magnet for plaque. But beyond that, it's a pretty safe piercing as far as erosion goes. It's not going to come in contact with your teeth very often, if at all. Bone structure, just a tad bit, but definitely not going to come in contact with gums. So it's low on the list. Now let's move on to number 15, the vertical Labret piercing. Because of the angle of this piercing and the fact that it's so far outside your mouth, it is not going to come in contact with teeth and gums and etc. like any other oral piercing will. In fact, it's so far out that I would say it probably will never cause any damage. Which brings us on to the last one, number 16, lip piercings. And when I say lip piercings, I'm talking about any piercing done on the lower lip at the angle that you would have a vertical Labret, usually done with rings or curved barbells. These also are completely outside the mouth. They don't have contact with teeth. They don't have contact with your gums. Unless you mess with them all the time and chew on them, you're probably not going to see any erosion at all. So there you go. Most risky to least risky. If you enjoyed this, found it helpful, found it informative, give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you liked it, because I like it. It helps with my self-esteem. If you enjoyed this and you would like to see more of it, your best option is to subscribe. Hit that notification bell so that you're notified every single time we post something. And if you have a question, comment, whatever, you want to dispute my claims, feel free to leave a comment. I usually answer them when I do have time. Right now, I'm a little behind, about 2 weeks, so be patient. I'll get to them. I promise. Till next time, here's hoping all your piercings heal with ease and without a single issue. And if you are in the Des Moines, Iowa area, we hope to see you for your piercing needs in the future. Have a good day, everybody. Take care. Stay well. We'll see you in the next video.